So Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out in November of 2010. It was directed again by David Yates, who had been returning from The Half-Blood Prince and also The Order of the Phoenix. Also, he was going to direct Deathly Hallows Part 2, and he's also directing, of course, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I gotta say, when I saw this movie, I understood, of course, being Part 1 and all, that it was, there were going to be parts that were a little bit set up for the second half of Part 2, or for the second half of the Deathly Hallows rather being Part 2, and they were obviously, of course, in terms of action, they were, of course, setting up for the Battle of Hogwarts, so I knew there was going to be a little more of a slow-moving film, but I didn't mind that because a lot of these other films, I wouldn't call them like action fest, but there were a good deal of action. I felt they had their good balance.
It's more entertaining scenes, maybe people will say, where this is more like character-driven and story-driven, and it's not as much, not as much craziness going on, even though this movie does have a fair share of at least like semi-action scenes, and they seem like when they're in the Ministry is pretty cool, and then other times when like they're running from the Snatchers and stuff, but yeah, it's not exactly the action fest that was the second movie. That movie has a lot of action, so they obviously were saving it for that one big time. But
the scenes, but I thought all the scenes, they really did a good job, like from scene transitioning and just the story. I really enjoyed the story in this too. And again, a lot of the slower scenes, I like going more in depth with when they're trying to figure out about Horcruxes, and then like Hermione has an epiphany of what like destroys Horcrux, like just scenes like that. I really enjoyed a lot of those scenes. One of the scenes also that I really liked, getting into some of the backstory, was about the brothers, that
was a really cool animation style scene. It just looked so great, and the music behind it was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene a lot.
And also too, the story in this movie, it's pretty basic and simple. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, for the first time in any of the films, they're not going back to Hogwarts. Now they're embarking on a journey to look for these Horcruxes in order to destroy Voldemort. And again, it's pretty basic, but I really enjoyed the story in this film, and I thought, like, again, I love seeing the journey of them into the woods and just, like, the road trip version of it, and seeing them, again, not in a comfortable place, like at Hogwarts, where we know they're kind of safe. Like, they're in the wilderness now, and, like, anything can happen, and they're being hunted by Death Eaters. The stakes are a lot higher in this film, and you feel, even though Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2 is coming out, they're obviously going to survive, you're not thinking that when you're watching it. You're thinking the stakes are really high, and, like, anything can happen to them, and they're a lot more vulnerable in this film, and it's also too, I like how dark this film is too.
And you can really feel the tension between all the characters and the whole world basically that's going on, and especially Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they have to carry that locket around that just makes them even more just like
it really felt like the Lord of the Rings, where like it got Frodo,
because it did show them walking a lot because they were trying to move from place to place when they couldn't apparate, and you really feel that between the three main actors, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and like you can tell like how much this is being tough on them, and Ron is obviously very pissed off because he's wearing the locket and he has all these family things going on, and he starts to feel like Harry and Hermione like are gonna get together, so he's feeling jealous, and the locket is just making it even that much worse. So, and then like I like actually seeing a lot of the fighting, and then like Harry and Hermione after Ron kind of disappears, and then
it felt more real. And also I liked how they showed the more vulnerable and mature sides of these characters too. And again, once again, these three actors, their chemistry is just so good together. They just really work really well together. And again, I like seeing that struggle and fight. And also, I like seeing Rupert Grint, Ron's character, get a lot bigger role in this, because I kind of felt like he was more of the sidelines in the last couple films. So he had a much bigger role in this film, and obviously, naturally so. They're going after Horcruxes together, but still, I liked that tension between them and how they were, again, like you said, whenever he had the locket on, again, it had that Lord of the Rings effect where it just caused that violent hatred in him. And we're used to seeing them get along. Obviously, they had a little bit of a skirmish in Goblet of Fire when he thought Harry entered himself in the Triwizard Tournament, but we haven't really seen Ron and Harry like go at each other in that way.
Well, yeah, and you even see Harry like lash out at Hermione too, because he's wearing the locket, and she's just like, take it off now, because she knows. And
I love how she's I was just about to say, I love how she's the brains of the group. It's absolutely.
Because the whole first half of their journey was all her. She set everything up. She was ready to go. She's prepared. She knew what she was doing.
Figuring out how to destroy the Horcruxes. Everything is almost her always. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of people don't like this movie as much for whatever reason, but I really like this one.
But I do have, obviously, when we get to the nitpicks and flaws and some of our issues with the film, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent rant, but don't worry.
There's a scene.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to
it. But yeah, the whole tonality of this movie is just very, very dark, and the music fits that really well.
Definitely. We got now for this score, again, we've had many composers up to this point. For this one in Deathly Hallows Part 2, we had Alexander Desplat. I gotta say, he's done. I mean, Deathly Hallows Part 2 is by far my favorite score, but I really enjoyed the score in this one too. It was very powerful and moving. He just strikes the right chords and tone, and with the tone of what's going on in the scene. And he, again, I could almost be blind and just listening to the music. I would have an understanding of what's going on. And that's what good music composers like John Williams and Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, all these guys do. And I really thought this is where I really started to understand Alexandre Desplat. And that's why I got so excited when I heard he was working on Star Wars Rogue One, and then now we got Michael Giacchino is now doing it, which I'm a big fan of his because Doctor Strange was such an incredible score, as well as Up and Star Trek. But getting back to this, Alexandre Desplat, again, I love all the composers we've had. John Williams is obviously one of my favorite composers ever, but this guy made such an incredible score.
Yeah, this movie was shot really well too, and I thought a lot of the moving scenes fit with the music well. But it was. I just love like everywhere they go in this movie. Like we see them in the countryside, or like in a forest, or even at the Weasley's house where the wedding is, that open field. Even like the downtown scene, like when they operate into, like I thought that all just looked really good too. And this movie was way different, like because it wasn't at Hogwarts pretty much at all.
Yeah.
So they were going everywhere else. So we got to see a lot more diverse, different looking scenes, and I just thought everything looked really, really good.
Some of the aerial shots just really beautifully shot, and the camera work in this really well done. Especially, even though I'm not a big fan of the scene where they're running from the Snatchers, I thought that scene was
looked really good.
The way they're running and the camera work and the leaves kicking all around when they're running. I thought the scene was, again, that scene in particular, even though I'm not a huge fan of that scene, the scene was particularly very well shot as well.
And I also loved like when they went into the ministry in the Polyjuice Potion, that just was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I just love seeing that all the inside of the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah, and also too, what we got to see for the first time in the Ministry of Magic this time is it's not under the control of the good guys anymore. It's under the control of the Death Eaters. So
Enemy territory.
Yeah, I thought that was an
We got to
interesting.
see Umbridge again.
Yeah, and you can tell and it's very. I thought it was very fitting to see Umbridge now with villains. So
The locket didn't seem really to affect her.
already like that. It actually made her, I could argue, it made her nicer.
Yeah.
Even, but again, she wasn't dealing with children, so maybe that's why she was nicer. But
I wouldn't say she was nicer. She was interrogating that dude's wife.
well, I meant towards Albert at least. But yeah, you're right.
That's her fellow evil colleague, so she's not going to be mean to him.
No, I know, but I feel you. We always got to talk about the humor in these movies. You know what? The humor was pretty good in this movie, but there wasn't.
It's a very dark and kind of
Yeah.
mellow movie, but there were times that were. It's just subtle humor that just made me laugh because it's the only time really that it's funny.
Yeah, and also I gotta say the visual effects in this film and the special effects really, really good in this film.
Definitely had the most updated like CGI and effects because. I mean, it's obviously more on par with like some of the earlier Harry Potter movies. Like it's still great, but it's definitely a little bit dated. Where now
Well,
it
yeah,
looks
like
really
if you
real.
like, and just one of the things you're talking about, like if you
Even
watch
Dobby looks like way like more realistic.
for
and real.
sure.
The snake looks really real.
It did,
Like, so
absolutely.
some of the snake action scenes were pretty cool. Like when they have to go to Bathilda Bagshot's house and that whole scene, and then whenever the snake's just with Voldemort.
Now, getting into our favorite quote of the film, mine personally is when they figure out, spoilers, is when they figure out, even though we've spoiled a little bit of this film already, but even when they're figuring out, or rather when Hermione figures out how to destroy the Horcruxes, Harry says, "You are brilliant, Hermione, truly." I just thought, again, that line just echoes what we've been saying throughout all these films. She's the brains of the team. And it was just very appropriate for her character to figure and solve that out. And the way they integrated it into the story and that delivery by Daniel Radcliffe for that line, it was my favorite quote.
I think my favorite quote is when Peter Pettigrew just gets stunned by Dobby and he says, "Oh,
I hate you." Okay, time for ranting. Now, our nitpicks and flaws of this film. Now, no film is obviously perfect, and look, I really still enjoyed this film, but a major issue I had, and again, things that I have issues with in these movies, I'm gonna agree with Jason when what he said to me earlier. It's not fair to say something that should have been in the book should have been in the movie, and that's why you should criticize it. I'm not going there. But I will say, this idea that I'm about to say that was from the book, to me, is way more powerful and satisfying to me. If you felt very satisfied by how it ended, I respect that decision. I don't know why you feel that way, but I respect that decision. We saw in Part 3, Prisoner of Azkaban, that Peter Pettigrew was the man who actually betrayed Harry Potter's parents because he's a freaking coward, and Voldemort threatened to kill him, and so he gave up the location of Harry's parents where they were hiding. Not Sirius Black like we had been led to believe. And then what happens is Harry Remus and Sirius are about to murder Peter, as we saw in part 3. Harry kind of says no, let him go to Azkaban, so he spares his life. My issue that I have is you end. What happens is Dobby stuns him, which I'm fine with Dobby stunning him if there's more. If Peter Pettigrew is continuing on in the series, but this is the end of Peter Pettigrew. It ends like this. Oh, after Dobby stuns him. Now, what happens in the book is he's about to murder, or rather, he's about to kill Harry, and Harry says, "Don't you remember I spared your life in Prisoner of Azkaban?" And Peter does not care. He's about to fire the Vada Kedavra curse at Harry, and all of a sudden his robotic arm turns on him, chokes him, and he gets choked to death by his robotic arm. I'm sorry, I'm not going with the book. You should have gone with the book, but that is just much more powerful and way more satisfying an end to the man who betrayed Harry's parents. And I just don't understand why you would set that up in the third movie of Harry sparing him if you're going to end it with this. Oh. I'm sorry, I just don't. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Every time I watch that, it really pisses me off, actually, which is why I'm ranting about it right now. And I just have no respect for that's how Peter Pettigrew's end is. I'm sorry, I wanted a little more satisfying end for Peter Pettigrew, the man who betrayed Harry Potter's parents, because that is not satisfying in any freaking way. And on top of that, that's the last we get to see of him. You can make the assumption, oh, Voldemort probably killed him or something for his incompetence. I'm sorry, that's the man who betrayed Harry's parents. I need to see how it ended other than, oh, that's just not good enough for me. It's insulting and I was pissed off and I hate it. I actually lowered the entire score of this review by 1 full point. Just for that little bit because I was so pissed off. Rant over. My final thoughts on this film, other than the beautiful rant you just heard from me, is that I really think this film is dark, it's mature, as you said, it's very story and character driven. It is slow in places, but again, when you're in those slow scenes, you're very entertained and enjoying what's going on in the scenes that you don't mind that they're slow. If they were boring slow scenes, there'd be a little bit of an issue. But again, I thought the pacing, even for the slow scenes we had, was pretty good, and it did a good job of setting up for the next movie. I thought the movie was very beautifully shot, not as much as Half-Blood Prince, but still very well shot. I thought it was well directed. The acting again is very well done. The music by Alexander Desplat, very well done again. The action, not a ton of it, but the action scenes we do get are very good. Also, too, you feel a lot more of the stakes in this. The stakes are higher in this film, which I really liked. I like seeing them kind of on a road trip on the countryside, being in Muggle territory. That was really cool seeing it. Other than a little bit of a Peter Pettigrew problem that I had, I'm going to give this film an 8.2 out of 10.
So it really would have been 9.2?
It probably would have been.
All right.
Yep. Sorry, Steve Kloves. Don't screw up. Don't set up something cool in the third movie to end it on a stupid pissy note.
Yeah, I really didn't have too much issue with anything in this movie. It is a little slow, but it's just really character and story driven, and I really enjoyed the story too. To me, it really feels like these movies are kind of really one, even though they are separate movies. Mm-hmm. So I mean, this really only is the first half of the story, and it's very dark. It just has a totally different feel than almost any of the other Harry Potter movies, and I just really liked it. I don't know. I obviously knew all this action was coming in the second movie, so that part that there wasn't too much didn't really bother me. So I'm going to give this movie an 8.8 out of 10. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. Let us know what you thought about this movie in the comments section. We are going to be reviewing part 2, so be on the lookout for that. And if you like these videos, you can hit the subscribe button.
See you guys next time.